As you heard, so I'm coming from Belgium, so you know that Belgium is known as a little country famous for beer, for chocolate, and also for fries, but also for the best soccer team. Sorry for the French. Well, in fact, I will discuss about an unusual project, in fact, because I'm here in the AI industry track, but in fact, my customer is a lawyer office, so it's not as usual as to have a lawyer office, especially for, in fact, discussing about machine learning. And in fact, you will see that we'll not start directly with a machine learning project. So the machine learning was an enhancement of the solution we have proposed. In fact, why? Because, as you know, most of the data that the company is dealing with is in fact, is in fact unstructured data. So it means that you have a lot of document. But the bad news is that most of the documents are not really used. So this is what we call either redundant, obsolete, or trivial data, ROT, but also and mainly what we call dark data. Nothing to do with Star Wars, but dark data means that you have the data, it's there, you pay for it, you store it, but you don't use it. And this is the challenge that we have with most of the customers we are working with, is to leverage those dark data. Because this dark data is rising, as you see here, the evaluation for IBM, so it will rise significantly. It's different, but it's a huge potential. And so the third thing we have to do is, in fact, to harvest this information and in order to create business value for the customer. This is what we call so the Databerg, or it's similar to an iceberg, the Databerg. So we have to stick to those dark data and get the best of it. So what was the need, in fact, of this lawyer company? Well, in fact, the problem they have is that first of all, that's a large international law firm, so not only settled in Belgium, but also in the world, so in the east and the west part of the world. And so most of the data, most of the information is in document. Obviously, in a lawyer company, you have a lot of document that you produce or you receive, but those documents are scattered in different environments, very different, very specific. So here you have a specific document management system, iManage, which is a very special one. Then you have, of course, email system, because they exchange a lot of document, a lot of information, in fact, through the mail. Then some document that needs to be archived, I put in a vault, and then obviously still use significantly file system. So today it's amazing to see when you visit large company, because we are also dealing with pharmaceutical company, with banks, insurance, there are still a lot of documents stored on the file system. So all those documents are scattered and stored sometimes on local or personal stuff, so like for the email, for instance. And in fact, the problem they have, and the need and the expectation they have, is in fact that they have to keep track on what we call an engagement letter. So could you imagine? So it means that they are not fully aware of all the document, engagement letter, contractual information that they have in their hands. So it means they are not informed correctly about the commitment they have to do and the contract specification they have with the customer. Why? Because it's scattered. It's scattered in the different information system. It's there in the mailbox of a lawyer and so on. So the main idea was to identify as soon as possible this information. So of course, you cannot rely on what we call metadata, because you know, well, if you have structured information like metadata, it's obvious to find an engagement letter. You just have to specify this type of document as an engagement. But it's not, so nobody has the discipline to identify an engagement letter using metadata. So it means that you have to identify that systematically and automatically, okay? And then as soon as you identify them, then they will put that in a specific repository, obviously SharePoint, in order to be sure that all the engagement letter they have is there, complete, and known by everyone. And of course, there is still an extra challenge, because you know that one of the similarities we have in Belgium with Switzerland is the fact that we have many national languages. So for the one who doesn't know, so we have 3 national languages: French, Flemish, which is a kind of Dutch, and German too. But here, in fact, we also have to challenge the solution with 3 languages, but they are English, French, and Dutch. So it means that we have to find and track all those engagement letters in those 3 languages. Okay, what's the process to perform? Well, in fact, the idea behind the solution I will propose to explain is, in fact, to move from all the data we have, which is mainly unstructured, as I mentioned, in document, to move to information. So information means useful information, insight, information that can be used for the business. So here in this case, so this famous engagement letter. And in fact, how to do that? Well, of course, you can develop a solution, but our approach as system integrator is to find the best solution to meet the expectation. So what we do, in fact, we are working with partner in order to choose a solution which will reduce as much as possible specific development, but just focus on customizing and certainly interaction with the customer in order to be sure that what we will deliver is what they want, what they expect. And so the steps is the process, is in different steps. First of all, and this is maybe obvious, but it's really crucial, and most of the time is spent on that level, is to be connected to all those sources, because the idea is not, in fact, to move the data to another system and to crunch it. No, it's to get access to the data where they are. So it means that we have to connect to all these existing repositories that I mentioned before, and then to read them and to convert that in order to be able to crunch it, to process it, to parse it. Of course, another important aspect is also to keep the security level. So this is also something crucial. So it is impossible, of course, to give a system where everybody has access to any data, even if they have no access to that, not granted for them. So the security model is also very important. And again, it seems to be basic thing, but it's really important. So this is the first step. Capture, read the information, get access to it, and then ready to be processed. Then the next step is, in fact, to index this information and to extract all the relevant information, all the concept, the entity relevant for their business. Okay? So that's what we call unlock the information. And finally, of course, is as soon as we will design, and I will explain that shortly, we design this model, so this classification model we will use for the machine learning stuff, then of course we have continuous improvement to validate the result by using power user, as I will explain. Okay, what's the solution we have put in place at this lawyer company? Well, in fact, as I told you, so we want to really use a big partner on the market, recognized leader, and to use their solution in order to deal with the different process I just mentioned. And one of the partners we are using is the French company Cinequa, one of the leading solutions for what we call cognitive search. And in fact, they present a complete solution where we can have access to those data. We can use natural language processing to process the different languages I just mentioned. And good news is that they have also a gateway, an integration with the learning stuff. So they have different modules, as you see here at a glance. So that's the list of modules they have. But if you would take a look one by one. So the first one is the connect module. So that's this exactly to deal with this connection to the different sources. The good news is that we are able to access more than 200 different sources out of the box. And even if you don't have an access to the data because the connector is not existing, we can build one. So that's the good news. And then we have a lot of converter also to be able to convert the data in order to have a readable format which can be processed by the algorithm. That's the connect module. Basic but crucial. And we spend a lot of time on that level because from practice, we have to get access to the data. As you know, when the people own data, so they want to keep it because it's power. So then we really need to discuss with those people, explain that it is safe, explain that we will only read the data and all the security will be done. That's very important. That's practical, but that's important. Then the meaning module is really the syntactic natural language processing part, semantic stuff, which is also built in the system, also dealing with all the languages in order also to extract relevant concept related to the business. They have text mining agent that we can develop or out of the box, which can be extract automatically the basic component, the basic concept and entity which are meaningful for the business. And then the famous learning module where you have this machine learning stuff with a possibility to be connected with existing algorithms coming from Spark or from TensorFlow. And the good news is that it's just a matter of configuring it. So this is really important, as I will explain. And then the idea behind the engagement ladder is really to set up, to design, to tune, to validate, and to use a classification model in order to identify those engagement ladder in the 3 languages I just mentioned. And last but not least, of course, we have to present the result, not only for the audit, because we have to follow and we have to track the precision, of course, of the recognition, But we also have to provide to the power user, and the power user, they are the knowledgeable worker who are able to identify those engagement letters. We have to give them also an easy solution in order to help us identifying, validating, or correct so the recognition of those engagement letters. Well, what are the main components? Well, through the administration of this solution, and this is good news, so we don't have to develop, so we just have to tune the system and to customize it. So we have a Spark cluster that can be set up in order to run the computation of the model. Then you will have the server who will host so this model where we will deploy so the solution once it is tuned, validated, and usable. Then, of course, all the exchange about the data. So you remember we connect to the data, so we need the data frame input and output. So there also we have data frame which are out-of-the-box delivered in order to capture the information, put that in the DEX, and then regenerate the information afterwards. And last but not least, so we have, of course, the model that will be created using the classification mathematical algorithm through the Spark platform. Well, and then, of course, in order to prepare and to tune the solution, we need to define data set, obviously. And for this case, so we need 3 types of main data sets, which are the training sets, which is the basic to design so the model. And there we need, of course, to have the power user who will identify for us those typical engagement letters in all the different languages. Then we have the evaluation set, which will be used, different, of course, from the training set, we'll use to measure the performance of the recognition and identification of this engagement letter. And then the validation to fine-tune the model through the parameters in order also to have the most accurate model that can be used. And of course, once those model has been set and used, of course, then we'll apply the result to the real set, so the real corpus, what we call the application set, which is not only, of course, the historical one, but also the daily coming new document in the system automatically will go through this recognition model. And of course, one of the challenges is to identify correctly those training sets, to find the right balance between the different languages, and also to have a significant and enough evaluation set and validation set to be sure that the model is correct. Then finally, what we will deliver is, first of all, an application to the power user, which will help them very quickly with one click to say, okay, this is an engagement letter, sorry, this is not, and so on. So this is really easy for them, so they just have to spend a couple of minutes every day if they want to fine-tune and enhance it, as I will explain. And then the classification model is based, of course, on identification of concept, automatically concept extract for those letters who identify as engagement letter in order to use them in the headline and in the corpus of the document automatically to be able to tune this model. And so, as I said, so the tree set of language is also very important, so that's why you need also knowledgeable people with all those language to create this data set for each of the training set and each languages. And of course, to help us to tune the system, we need to have some measurements. So we need to have some identification, some metrics, in fact, to be able to know that we are on the good track. And so the system is also providing that out of the box. So it means that you can have automatically report with some information about metrics scored that shows you if you are on the good track or not. So, and typically, the one we are using is what we call the metrics precision and recall, which is, as it is explained here, the precision, so it's the number of true positive on the total of true positive and false positive. So this is the precision, and then the recall is the true positive on the false positive. So then you see precisely with graph that you're on the good track. The confusion matrix is also a typical visual tool that we use, and so you try to have a diagonal in order to be sure also that the recognition of the model is correct. So all those things are delivered out of the box, and then it is fine-tuned every day and also refresh every day in a process which is automated. Sorry. And this is the automation. So we have the training set from the beginning, so with a first set. Then we move those one to the evaluation set in order to measure the performance, as I just explained. Then the tuning is done again with the validation one. And then finally, when we have a first model, then we deploy that on the ML server, as you see here, the ML server. And then we have the prediction based on the corpus that we have to process. But again, here, we can constantly improve it. So it means that we can provide to the power user, so this famous labeling search-based application, which will help them to label or relabel some document and then automatically update the training set. And then again, the process is start again every night. And then at the end, of course, you will have a very fine-tuned system. What are the lessons learned, in fact, in this project? Well, first of all, as you see, so before jumping to the machine learning algorithm for this kind of business, so I mean, really unstructured data, a lot of volume, so because we have customers with billions of documents or billions of records in the system. First of all, you have to settle down, so a system which are able to connect to those data, process them. So a classic, what we call a classic cognitive search solution. Once you have that, so you have the basement to become information-driven, as we said, and then build upon that, so extra functionality like machine learning classification or other topics, predictive analysis or clustering or stuff like that. The preparation of that is crucial, and you need to have the good team on board. And this is really, really important, because most of the time spent is to have the right people around the table. And so our approach is, in fact, to always work with a POC, so a proof of concept. So it means that we set up a system, and then we show on their own data, and this is important, on their own data, we show, in fact, the result, and so they can play with it, and you involve what we call power user or key user. And this is really, really important. And of course, we do that in an agile way, so because it's stepwise, so it's step by step, we refine the solution to deliver finally something which can be deployed in an industrial way for the real processing. I thank you for your attention. If you have any question, so we have a booth, so you are welcome, more than welcome, in our booth afterwards. Thank you.